This is Shelley Kraft coming to you live on SNN Live. We're at the LD Micro Invitational 2015 here in Bel Air, California. Nick Hodge is standing with me from the Outsider Club. He's a publisher. Nick, welcome to SNN Live.
Shelley, thanks for having me back on. It's always a pleasure.
It's good to have you. I'd like to ask you, what's the latest? What's the greatest?
The latest for me has been uranium. I think that the price is going to break out in a big way over the next 12 to 18 months. So we have a supply deficit looming, China and India coming online in a big way, and the uranium price at $35 a pound simply isn't high enough to bring new supply online.
You know, it's been 35, it's been hovering. What's the reason why it's going to break out?
Well, the fundamental reason is that demand is simply growing, right? Nuclear energy is going to be a big part of baseload as far as 2030. So, as I said, China and India are building in a big way. The UAE wants nuclear. Saudi Arabia wants nuclear. Argentina just announced. Nigeria just announced. So the fundamental reason is rising demand. I think the reason you haven't seen uranium break out yet is a psychological factor of Japan, right? So we had Fukushima in March of 2011, and that really sent the whole sector into a downward spiral. So the demand is there now, but I think what you need is a Japan restart to allow the psychological factor, the hurdle, to be cleared.
But I hear tell through the grapevine that something like that could possibly happen shortly.
Well, so they've approved 3 reactors for restart. The most recent news, just as of last week, as of late May, was we're approved for 3 reactors. 1 could come online as soon as July.
What about the U.S.?
So the U.S. currently has the largest operating fleet of reactors in the world. We have 100 operating reactors, but we don't produce nearly enough uranium to supply them. And so we're utterly dependent on foreign sources of uranium, just like we are for oil. And so I think if the U.S. is going to get smart about it, they're going to want to start producing more uranium domestically.
Who's the largest producer of uranium now?
I would say the largest producer of uranium is Kazakhstan. It's Kazatomprom. They're supplying some 35 to 37% of the market, followed by the Uzbeks, followed by the Russians, and Australia, and so and also in Niger. So those are politically unstable places. They're not geopolitically friendly to the U.S., and so it's not really smart to be reliant on them for supply.
So you're encouraged to think that North America, obviously Canada is a supplier as well. Mm-hmm. So between Canada and the U.S. coming online could become a pretty substantial new supplier, not only domestically but also internationally, right, for export.
I think that's right. So there's a lot of high-grade uranium in the Athabasca Basin. Fission has a great deposit in Patterson Lake South that's already over 100 million pounds. The Chinese have already expressed interest in buying that. And then there's some great in-situ operations in Texas that are already producing right now, producing yellow cake, and could ramp up very quickly should the need arise.
So your interest now is in the other yellow metal, as they say. So is this where you're focusing right now?
I've been focusing on uranium. I mean, obviously, I still like gold. I like hard assets in general. But gold just can't seem to catch a bid right now. We're waiting on probably a QE announcement or some decision-making from the Fed. But there's no industrial use for gold, right? There's no real use for gold. Uranium is an energy metal. There's a fundamental demand for it. And so that demand is ramping up, and so that's the place to be looking right now.
And, you know, people forget. Europe, France, is completely dependent and going further and further and further into using uranium, right?
That's right. I mean, France is some 80-85% dependent on nuclear power. Their company there is Areva. They have many partnerships with Canadian companies and are trying to develop assets around the world.
So they're probably buying it from Kazakhstan, et cetera.
Oh, everyone's buying it from Kazakhstan. When you supply nearly 40% of the market, your uranium is going into a lot of reactors.
So if we had to look at a price target for 2016, where would you, I'm going to now put you on the spot, all right?
Sure.
Besides, I'm going to give you a glowing report talking about uranium. But where do you think it's going?
So most analysts agree that uranium needs to go to $75 to stimulate new supply. They say a material supply deficit is going to emerge by 2017 once the utilities start buying for the 2018-2019 cycle. And so we might not get to 75 in 2016, but I certainly think we'll be north of $50.
So, Nick, I want to give our audience an opportunity to learn more about you and what you have to say, particularly about uranium. So where would you like to send the audience?
You can go to outsiderclub.com. You can find my profile page there, and I've written a lot about uranium the past couple of months.
Ladies and gentlemen, Nick Hodge, Outsider Club. He's a publisher. I'm Shelley Kraft. This is SNN Live, and we're coming to you live from the LD Micro International 2015, Bel Air, California. Nick, Pleasure to see you.
Always great pleasure to have you
Good to
have me
have
on
you.
here.